Should we get some coffee going or something? What do we need to do? Make a run? Because we got, what energy should we lead with today? We've got guest speakers and we've got, pardon?
Well, we could lead with a fiery red.
We need fiery red in the room, and we also need what?
Some green.
We need some green, but what do we also need?
Donuts.
Donuts would be, someone from Sunshine Yellow should have brought donuts today. But we've got cereal, thank you McGizzy, and we've got other food over there. They're the bomb as far as bringing food for breakfast and stuff for us.
So these are our guest speakers, Nick, Mohammed, and Latasha Candy. Yep. Nick is the CEO of Titan Administration, and Latasha is the Executive Director for Students of Education Reform, and then those two are her students, and she'll introduce them. You guys.
Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Max. I'm going into my sophomore year of college. I grew up in Nickel Grove Public School, K through 12, and now I'm going to Whittier College, which is right outside Los Angeles, California.
My name is Naya. I'm going to be a senior at the U of M this fall. I grew up in Albert Lee, Minnesota. For those of you who don't know, it's about an hour and a half, small town. I also went to a public K through 12 school, and then this is my first summer involved with Students for Education Reform, and I'm looking forward to telling you guys all about that.
Alright, so I just wanted to, I'll be real brief, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of background about myself. So quick correction, I'm the Minnesota Program Director, not Executive Director, but I'm working on it, thank you. So Minnesota Program Director for Students for Education Reform. I got involved in this work because I was a mom of 2 daughters. My oldest daughter was struggling to read at grade level, and at the time I didn't even know that's what it was called, to read at grade level. I just knew she was struggling. She wasn't reading as good as I was reading when she was in 3rd grade, so I knew something was wrong. And I would go to teachers and ask teachers to help me to help her, and they wouldn't give me like concrete skills to help my child. And so I got frustrated, and I got mad, and I started to feel like an inadequate parent. And at the same time, I had a really good friend who was an education major at the college I went to, Metropolitan State University. She told me about the achievement gap. She told me that they had just made a prison bed for my daughter, Jasmine Mays, 3rd grade. There was a prison bed waiting on her. And they said that, she told me this because they had used 3rd grade reading scores to predict the privatized prison bed needs. Immediately, again, got angry, got sick feeling like an inadequate mother. She did mention the term to me, achievement gap. I didn't know what that was. I was 25 years old in college with 2 kids and didn't know what that term meant. But I knew that it had something to do with this inadequacy that I was feeling as a parent. So I looked it up, and sure enough, found out a lot about the achievement gap. Found out how my daughter's school was failing for years and no one ever told me. How she had an ineffective teacher for 3 straight years and no one ever told me. How my own education, I went to Arlington High School in St. Paul, failed me. It graduated me at a 4.2 GPA. I was the 2nd in my class, and I made it to college taking remedial courses. Does everybody know what that is when I say remedial courses? All right, so again, it was just like this sick feeling, right? Like, why had I been lied to all these years? Why was I told I was prepared and I wasn't? Why was I told at conferences that my daughter was making improvements and she was striving, but she still was behind, right? And it was just like this sense of just anger. And I didn't know what else to do with it but to talk about it. And so through that, I found the organization Students for Education Reform. I started a chapter on my college campus as a student and went into my community and just started hitting the pavement, telling people about this achievement gap, telling people about your 3rd grader has a prison bed waiting on them. Because in low-income schools, the majority of students are not reading at grade level. So I got people's attention with that statistic. They have a prison bed for your child waiting, and then people naturally wanted to know more. Every parent cares about their child, no matter what's going on in their life, if they're an addict or abuser or whatever. They care about their seed in their gut. So it was this immediate reaction from people of like, what is this achievement gap? What are you talking about? You know, my school is great, my teachers are nice, the school is clean, they're getting what they need, but they really wasn't. And so after that, I became more passionate about this cause and not being able to sit around anymore, that I put off law school, and I became the full-time program director for ESPER. And so that's the work I'm in now. We have a voice, and it's stronger than any decision maker that's sitting in a seat right now making bad decisions for our kids. And when we unify in numbers, we can create change. So don't ever doubt the power of your voice and the power of your feet. It is strong, and you can do some great things with it.
Okay, I'm getting the public education experience. Like, I know what public education is. I'm going through it. And that changed a lot once I got into college. I started reading about things like, police dogs going through schools because there were suspicions of, drug activity taking place there. I was like, well, that never happened in my school. And just classroom techniques where, what they would call sort of militarized classrooms, where students had this strict regimen that they had to follow, and there wasn't much room for flexibility or creativity. And I thought, well, wait up now, I went to a public school. That's not what I went through. So that's really when I started to realize, okay, something's going on here. Depending on where you live, and depending even on what you look like or how much money you have, you're going to have a very different school experience, even if you're going to what should be all equal public schools.
I was actually born in a refugee camp in Kenya, and my parents were lucky enough to be able to move my entire family to the United States in pursuit of an education. Growing up, my dad had always told me that an education is the key to your future. And looking back on it now, I feel like, there's a qualification to make to that statement, and that should be a quality education that prepares you for your future is the key to success. I went to a public school, but I had the same kind of experience Max had, and that's the kind of experience I assumed everyone else had in a public school. That you have your one-on-one time with your teachers, and everyone is supporting all the students to make sure that all the students are achieving the educational outcomes appropriate for their grade level, and that they're preparing you to be a competitive student in higher education, and preparing you to be a competitive applicant in the job market. And I didn't realize that there was such a thing as an achievement gap, or a school-to-prison pipeline, or just inadequacies that can very easily be fixed if we just had enough people out, hitting the pavements and making their voices heard. And that's why I got involved with ESPER. I'd always wanted to, help make a difference in something that I feel affects all of us. And you have politicians telling you guys that it's the youth that have the power to make a change. It's your voice that matters. And I feel like once we all internalize that and really start to believe it, there's so much that can be done here. The fact that you guys are all here today, and that you've been here all summer, and that you're working towards a common goal, that's important, that's powerful.
So in 2012, there were around 195,000 available voters. About 114 actually cast their ballot during the presidential election in 2012. The very next year, in the municipal election for mayors, city council people that literally affect your day-to-day life and quality of life that you're dealing with, more than the president. That same 114,000 number went down to 13,000. Okay? So if the president gets the support of over 114,000 out of 194,000, and he could do very little for your day-to-day life, but your mayor, your city council person, your state senators, your state representatives, if all of them affect your day-to-day life and you're not even present to let them know that you're there in significant number, you can't really expect the life that you're looking for, school board members. You can't expect the quality of life to improve if you're not engaged in the leadership that affects your day-to-day life. Now, what do you guys think about that statistic? And that's all across communities of color. We come out heavy for presidential, and then we turn out very little for
official power and unofficial power. Like have you ever heard that saying, people follow people? That's their unofficial power. Like they friend with each other, they friend with other people that make decisions. So they have the power on the board to actually cast a vote, and then they have the power to be in someone's ear to make sure their initiative gets passed. That could be in the counter interest of kids. So school boards have tremendous power, and the decisions that they make are effective the next day. Whereas a decision the president makes, it takes time, a lot of time to trickle down, to even hit your door. Right, if it even hits your door. But if the school board decides to do a anti-discrimination policy, it's gonna happen tomorrow in your school. And you wouldn't have nothing to do with it, but it will affect you if you didn't show up to vote and if you didn't show up to voice your opinion. If that's the person that's sticking you with a fork, like just imagine, I want this policy for my school, and that's the person that's constantly sticking to you, that's who you're gonna listen to, right? If it's not us constantly in there sticking them with that fork, they're not listening to us. We're unseen and we're unheard, right? So the reason that, in my opinion, that some of the school board is so toxic now is because the people that are showing up are the people that are okay with status quo. Status quo is serving them very well. So why would they have a problem? And so the school board is continuing to make decisions that benefit the people that are showing up. However, right now, this election cycle is a game changer. It could potentially be a huge game changer. There are 5 seats up. The board has 8 seats on it. Right now, it's a majority anti-reform agenda, so against changing status quo. If you were to get those seats, the 5 seats that are up, and make sure there are people in there that are willing to do what's necessary and change status quo, those 3 remaining people that are sitting there have no power. They're outnumbered. So in times of not being able, like, it's faster to change the dynamic in an election than it would be to, like, change the whole constituent makeup that's showing up at the school board. I would say too is like, a big thing that ESFR is on is like school visits, right? So actually getting students to go see younger students. It's just something about kids that makes you just a little bit more committed to it. So go visit some schools. Go look at some of the schools that are not doing so well, and don't go look at the schools that are doing very well. Just walking in that space is gonna give you some passion and gonna give you some motivation for wanting to stay in this work. And take a couple friends with you. Our organization was founded by 2 people that just pulled people around and went on school visits. And then it grew into a national organization. But it started with 2 friends taking their friends on simple school visits and seeing the differences in just the way the kids were treated in all aspects, academically, personally, everywhere.
Don't think you don't have the power already, right? Like, that's very important. Don't underestimate your power and your voice and your ability to organize your own friends, your own neighborhoods, and take action on your own. Adults, everybody will follow as long as you're setting the tone. Like, you will get that support. So just know that you already have that power. It doesn't have to be granted to you. It's already there. I believe that it would be just better to get teachers from diverse backgrounds to begin with in leadership and in the classroom, so that you don't have to do cultural competency training as a course. You will have a diverse staff of people to begin with. By show of hands, who think that's a better strategy? Okay. So if you all see this, have you all done any of the analysis or data on how that actually works, like the dynamics of that, classrooms or schools where that diversity exists, and how that school operates versus schools that have a bunch of trained teachers from a disconnected culture that have to be put through a training about you, and how that actually works? Because I think all too often they always say that there's this provision that they're going to take, and we kind of sit back and go, okay, she's going to learn about me, or he's going to learn about me in, an hour, a week. But do you really believe that's going to be effective, type of deal? So I would even flip it around and say, is that even a beginning point to make sure they're even going through it? What about, is that even a viable solution? That's what I would say.
What we're working on.
You're working on that right now?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, the start is the logo that you guys came up with. Someone want to explain that?
Carlos, you want to talk about that?
Actually,
Kelly, you want to talk about that?
yeah, what's it called? So it's Youth Diverse Union, and so I thought, him or like a person screaming out and shouting out YDU, because our motto is, if you hear our voice, you'll know. Sorry, if you hear our voice, you'll know our choice. And so I just that reflected on us, and someone being powerful in there, screaming out our name.
And then with bullying, can I just ask, was the issue of discipline also raised?
You guys want to go that?
Unwarranted suspensions or?
Oh, like, I never really knew they made a policy for like bullying. And so with that, I'm guessing like other students don't really know too. And so, well, even though they made a policy for it, I feel like we can't do much except like aware kids and all that. But then after Dario talked to us about like, you know, them having money to like maybe do something about it, but not doing anything, I thought about like maybe we can think about ideas or like groups that we can probably start creating, or I don't know, something to support the bulliers or the kids who are being bullied. Oh, with your question about the punishments and stuff, we talked about it, and then we talked about how suspending kids wouldn't really do much because, I mean, they're getting out of school and they're not really...
You're like depriving them of their education.
Yeah, and so we also talked about maybe it'll be better if they had like in-school suspension instead of like just getting suspended, because in-school suspension, they'll still be in school and then they'll still have to do their work, but they'll be by themselves and, you know, still a punishment.
Believing in this group and for Luce for your vision to pull us together this summer. We've had an incredible summer. We've learned, if anything, we've learned a lot about each other and about the struggle and how hard this work really is. But we thank you for believing in us and giving us the opportunity to really just come together and work on it and see where we go. So,
You're our future, and we're, you know, it's all about your voice and it's all about what you can do to change it. So we're excited about having you get in, get your voices heard, and doing the work. You guys are going to be doing an incredible amount of work. Thank you.
Thank you.